Hello, this is Becca from Willow Hill Designs. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome to my channel. Hope everyone is doing well. Today I am gathering supplies for the Roxy's Journal of Stitchery Volume 4 project, which is, I'm not sure exactly what it's entitled, but it is where we will be gathering treasures and stitching them into a project, whether they be fabric treasures or little metal, ceramic, whatever they may be, treasures to add to our pieces. So I will not be making a wall hanging because what I have in mind wouldn't go anywhere in my house really other than my sewing room, and I don't really have any more wall space left for for a wall hanging. So I think this will be more of a little throw that I will be putting in my sewing room. And the base that I have decided to choose is this portion of a quilt that I bought from Etsy. And it's a wedding ring quilt, double wedding ring quilt. And it's quite faded, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. And to me, it does look very vintage. These don't look like the new 1930s fabrics that they're reproducing. This, to me, looks like the authentic 1930s. I would say that this was made in the around that time period. That's a guess. I'm not a fabric expert, but in looking at it and the wearing on it and the prints of the fabrics, I would guess that this is vintage. But I won't be stitching on this side of this little quilt piece. I'll be stitching on the other side of it. In looking at this little quilt, looking on the back side of it, let me turn it this way. Looking on the back side of it, I have come to admire this person's work greatly. Her stitches are just tiny, tiny, tiny stitches and meticulous. Just meticulous, beautiful, beautiful stitching. I mean, the teeniest of stitching, and it's hand quilted. It's really just a beautiful piece, and I feel sort of a kinship with her just from working. I began adding some doilies and laces to this little piece just because I was going to put it in my sewing room. And then when the prompts were announced, or the idea and the theme for this volume 4, I thought of this piece. So I'll be taking some of this off, not all of it. I think I'll be taking these doilies, maybe this, probably this lace here, and maybe this doily. I may leave a portion of that. But my idea for this project, being that it will run for 6 months, and we will be doing it from, I think, July till December, so that'll be 12 prompts. I decided to do hexagons, to do each project, each prompt, I should say, on a hexagon. And I cut out, let's see, I cut out 12 hexagons, and I just drew a cardboard template. I had a metal hexagon pattern, or template, I should say, and it was this size, and I didn't have anything bigger, so I just added with my ruler around it to see if I liked that size, and I decided I wanted it a tiny bit bigger, just trying to judge how I could fit 12 on this little piece of quilt. And I'm just trying to see what I added. Okay, what I wrote down on here. But so this was my template, and I took just muslin, little muslin, and drew my hexagon shape on there, and I cut out 12. So here are the 12 hexagons that will go on my little throw. I guess I'll call it a little throw. And I also cut out batting for all 12 of those. So they will have batting under them. And this one right here has the batting on it underneath. And the way I will approach this is to add lace or different things that I like, little treasures that I have in my sewing room. And then I will do stitching. It's kind of hard to tell because we don't really know too much about this and what the prompts will entail. So my general idea is that I will be putting some laces and things on this, adding some little treasures, some little stitcheries, and then stitching. Now I also cut out these hexagon shapes, and these are about, I think it's 3/4 of an inch larger than the other hexagon. And what I will be doing is finishing the edges on these little hexagons. So I'll be putting it, let me move this one so you can tell. When it's all stitched and finished, you know, with all the messiness on the back and everything, I will just fold this down and then fold it down again. And so it will have a nice finished edge on the hexagon when it's done. So that's how it will look. I don't know if you can tell so much on that background. I'll pull that away. So the hexagon will look like this. It will have a finished edge on top and the stitching in the main portion of the hexagon. And I didn't want this side to be facing up because I thought it may be kind of busy with whatever falls in between the hexagons, so I'm going to use the wrong side of this fabric to border the hexagons. So it'll be like that. It'll be just a little deeper shade of ivory. And these hexagons, it works out perfectly to fit 12 of this size on this quilt, this little quilt piece. So I've kind of drawn those out. Nothing set in stone. I'm sorry, my stomach is rolling. my stomach is empty. Sorry about that. So they will all be placed sewn on this precious little person's quilt. And if you can tell, there's diamonds that will be in between the hexagons. So let's bring these back here for a second. So the hexagons will be like this on here. And there are diamonds that kind of appear here in between. And what I will be doing with those is probably, I'm thinking right now at the time, adding fabric in here. Fabric to these diamonds in between. And I've pulled some fabrics from my stash. And again, this is just kind of really a loose idea because we really don't know what the prompts are, and that kind of informs your fabric selection. And I'll just add that I did just a little running stitch on this hexagon around the edges just to keep the batting and the hexagon, the muslin hexagon, together as I'm stitching. And those will probably be covered up with whatever I add to this. And then again, if not, they can be pulled out easily. It's just a large running stitch. So the way I would probably approach these hexagons is that I have some vintage doilies or little dresser scarves, and I might take a portion of that and sew it onto the hexagon. So there may be a little portion of that on there, depending. I mean, it could be just a little tiny small portion, or it could be a larger portion. So I have some of these little vintage, I guess, doilies, dresser scarves, which might be pretty to add to these. I do have my Nonnie's sewing, my grandmother's sewing, but I would not cut up anything of hers. Absolutely not. So these are not, those are my real treasures. I would not cut those up. These are my semi-treasures here. So, I mean, that might be interesting to add to a hexagon, again, depending on our prompts. But these are just some little things that I have. This one looks hand-stitched, and of course the lace is very pretty. The lace could be added on there, or maybe just the flowers, and then other embellishments on there. There's another one. That little basket of flowers is very pretty. Or these little flowers could be used, just the little flowers, or maybe just a portion, maybe even that. Just depending, again, what the prompts are and, you know, what you think would look nice. So I may do something like that. Here's another one. I do have some more in a little chest of mine, but I haven't, I've been so busy with quilts that I just have not had time to pull more, but it's kind of really why pull so much now, because as we go along I'll have a better idea, and then I'll go through and see what might look nice. So that is one of my ideas, to add some of these vintage embroideries. They look vintage, embroideries to the hexagons, but also I have laces. Let's see, I have a big basket of laces. Let me move that to the side. And things like this might be used. A little portion of something like that might be pretty on one of these. I have little portions of doilies that could be added, and laces, larger doilies. Let's see. I have these laces. This, I think, is a collar, and that might be pretty, a portion of that on here. I'm really not making a mood board, am I? But maybe a portion of lace like that on there. That's a possibility. This is a little hanky that says, "To my dear brother," which that's really special. This was my mom's, and I don't know the story behind this, but could this be added? Maybe just the butterfly added on there and some lace. I don't know. I think this is so fine and delicate. I couldn't even guess what this fabric is, but just very, very pretty. And again, here are more doilies, laces. Here's a little, here are some little flowers that are, I think, machine embroidered into fabric. And they might look pretty on there. I mean, something like that could be added, depending. And this is a little piece of some vintage little fabric that I had, which again might be cute to put in there with some lace. And here's more lace, which is very pretty, sparkly. This I absolutely love. I think that's beautiful. So that could be on one of the hexagons. That is actually on this little quilt piece here. So there's lots of laces and things here. And I have this whole basket full of laces that, again, I can pull from to use on here. This one I love especially. This one came from South Africa, and I just think that is beautiful. Maybe a portion of that would look pretty on a hexagon. I just think that's so pretty. That could be used on there with some other stitching. So that is beautiful. This was very expensive for this tiny little piece. Her name is Indigo Rose on Etsy, but oh my goodness, she has beautiful things. Look at this. This is beautiful. Very fine little lace, which might be pretty. A little piece of that, depending on the color scheme. This is an absolute favorite of mine. I love this. I think that's beautiful. And so that might be pretty on there. And again, a fabric could be put underneath this just to sort of bring that out a bit. Could put a little color under there to bring that out, to have these laces show up. So that's probably a very definite possibility. And then I have laces like this, finer laces, wider laces, some pink. I will definitely, I think, be doing some pink in this. So this is a very pretty pink lace. This could go somewhere, maybe across the center or at an angle. So those laces are very, very pretty, and that is my intention, to use laces on this, laces and maybe little fabrics. Now for the diamonds that are in between these hexagons here and up here, I will be inserting fabric. As far as I know, I would like to put some fabric in those diamonds. So if you can picture that, picture a hexagon there, and then that diamond shape. And if I did a hexagon here and here, and of course one here, you're going to see that diamond shape emerging with colors. So that's kind of my intention, to do these colors in between the hexagons. And the colors that I love, that I seem to have chosen for this, and again, it's nothing set in stone, because without knowing the prompts, it's hard to know which way it'll go, but some of the fabrics that I chose are some sort of blushy pinks. I love this. I think that's very pretty. This is a pretty toile fabric with little children on it, and that might be pretty in between one of the hexagons. That could be. So I have there's different little scenes. It's kind of a beach scene on here with little children, a little boy and little girl. So that might be pretty. And I love this color as well. I may use this. It may be all pinks, or I'm thinking pinks, greens, and sort of pale blues. This fabric I absolutely love. This is a Robin Pandolf fabric. And some of these roses I think would be very pretty in between. So that's another possibility, that pink. Also, this is kind of a creamy, this is also, I think, Robin Pandolf. That's kind of a creamy color, might look pretty in between the hexagons, depending on what color they take on. Here's another pink that I thought. And this is just a small grouping, really. There's so many that I could have pulled, but without knowing what the prompts are. I love this fabric. I think this is beautiful. It has that kind of a blush pink behind it with roses. I think that's very pretty. So pinks, I think, most definitely will be on there. And also greens. I'd like to put some greens in there. And some of the greens that I pulled, this green I think is very pretty. It's a delicate kind of a lacy look, so that might be pretty on there. And this makes me think of a toile. It's not, but it does make me think of a toile fabric, so that might be pretty. That's kind of almost in that same shade or tone. Then there's this, which is more of a tealish, greenish, bluish color background. And then it has the roses, so that might be pretty as well with some of these other roses. That's kind of a possibility. This is kind of an interesting fabric, but I was looking more at the green in it. And that green might be interesting. This is a map fabric, but I mean, just a small diamond of that might be pretty with the pinks, a little bit of that green. Excuse me. And then there's this green. This has ivy leaves and oak leaves on it. That's a little bit of a different, that might be very bright. I don't know. Then there's this very pale kind of a green, which might go with those others. Again, not sure there. This is another pale green with roses on it, with ivy and roses. And that might be pretty. That might go, if it matters to keep it in that same kind of color family of greens. And then I have some ticking here. And that's sort of a, I was going to say celery green, maybe not. Light olive green, and then some ivory in the background. That might be pretty in some of the diamonds. Or this, which has little roses on it. And I have a gingham, excuse me, which again might go with that theme with the roses. And this, little vines, and that one might go as well in here. Again, you know, not sure, just kind of guessing. This one's a little bit darker, this color here. And so then I decided that I may throw some blues in. So I love this blue. This is a very pale, almost a greenish blue. I don't think you can really tell on the camera, but this is a very pretty color, and this has roses on it, which would also go with the roses that are here. This is a William Morris fabric, but again, kind of in that family, and the colors may go. That might look pretty in a diamond, one of the diamonds. This is another Robin Pandolf, so is this with the roses. I love this with the petunias. That might be very pretty. I don't know if I pulled that in pink. No, I didn't. I have this in pink, so that might be nice. Excuse me, I have these scrolls. Again, kind of keeping with that fabric color. That might look nice. And another gingham, which would go with these blues in here. A little all-over vine kind of on an ivory, and that also might look pretty in the diamonds. Again, not sure about that. It's a possibility. And this one, sorry, my allergies are bothering me. This one, which is very pretty, this has that same kind of bluish greenish color in the background with some, I could find some smaller motifs on here that are not quite so like those ivy leaves, maybe something like that, something not too huge on there to compete with the hexagons. Or maybe you would need something larger to accent the hexagons. I don't know, but I thought that's a possibility. And then this is a toile. I have this also in green, so that could be used. This is a Peter Rabbit toile. It's really very beautiful. And if I used a little portion of that for a diamond, I could probably tea dye this just a bit. Just give it a little dip to make it go with the ivory or the older look. I would like something to look more vintagey and old. Excuse me. So these are just some of the fabrics that I pulled. Again, there's so many more that I could have pulled, but without knowing what our prompts are, it's just too hard. It's too hard to figure it out at this point. And then I just have some little trims here that I keep for slow stitching. Some little lace pieces. There's another little lace piece that might look interesting on a hexagon. A piece like this might be pretty on here. Maybe something like this. Almost like a little crazy quilt type of thing, I'm thinking. And this is I love this color. Kind of a muted pink with ivory background, which I thought might be interesting to include on there. It has that vintage feel to it. And these are some little hexagons for another little project for my granddaughter. And so, I mean, I could even do some little hexagon flowers on here, or just stitch some little hexagons on. There's different colors here, or just add one or two, depending. So that might be something interesting to include, some little hexagons on there. I would consider these little treasures. I didn't bring down my mom's button box, which is upstairs. I didn't get that, but I do have my mom's whole button box that I will be looking through to see if there's anything in there that I'd like. I don't mind putting a button or anything like that. I just won't cut up any of my grandmother's vintage linens. But these are some wooden buttons that I have. That again, I'm just realizing now I have a rose theme going on here. And I mean, one of those with maybe a few other small buttons might look pretty with that. So those I think are a definite possibility. And I'm just thinking, I didn't pull, let me see, I didn't pull my other button box, which I love. I love these buttons. These are just all very pretty, muted. I'm not crazy about shiny buttons. I like buttons that are kind of more of muted matte finish. So I have some pretty buttons here in here that I can use. And I have some little tiny ones that I could mix in. I have some cloth buttons, some little linen buttons that might look pretty in here as well. So those buttons, I'm not sure what's in here. Let's see, what did I put in? Oh, okay, here's more buttons. And these are the little linen buttons. This one and this one are the little linen. These are actually tilde buttons. There's a yellow and a pink, purplish pink and blue or aqua. And so I will be adding buttons to the hexagons, and there's some other buttons that I have that I didn't grab. Let's see. I have, oops, so sorry. I have these little buttons, and these are tilde buttons as well. And I think these have a very vintage feel, and these do too. So I'm pretty sure these will make their way onto this little piece here that I think I'm going to call it a throw. Here are some more little things that I have pulled. This was from a clip that you clipped on your shoes. That was my mom's. Just little odds and ends, little pieces of jewelry that were my mom's in this little old jewelry box that I thought might be interesting to add. This little flower might be pretty. This is pretty. This is an old pin, and the back is gone. So that would be perfect to add, I think. And then some heshy beads here, which I think would be very interesting to add. So I pulled some of those. This little piece, which might go on there. Let's see, this little piece might look pretty on there. It's just going to be a throw, so I think it'll be fine. I'll put that there. Let's see. And I think lastly, I have my little treasure box where I keep little pieces of trim that I love. So this is an interesting piece that came off of something. It feels like a selvage, but that would be pretty on there. And I have little tiny pom-poms. My children know that I love pom-poms. So that might be pretty to use these little miniature pom-poms on there. I have some kind of, what would you call that? Sort of not cheesecloth, but an open weave little flowers that might be pretty to add. Let's see, what else? These crocheted flowers might be pretty. I think I have 2 of those in there. So they might be pretty to add as well. And there's some lace in here, a silk leaf, some roses, some little rosebuds, which might be very pretty, and little buttons. This is kind of an unusual pale pink button. This one is mother of pearl. Oh, I see the little hole is broken on that. That can't go up, but I do have more of those. Let's see, I have this. I think that could possibly go on there. And I love, love, love these flowers. I think they are beautiful. That could go on. There's a little teeny tiny motif from lace, and I had stitched these little beads in there. They were for another project, so that could go on. This is an interesting button. This is a fish button. So that could possibly end up on there. This is a pretty button as well. So this is my little box of treasures that I like to look through when I'm looking for something special to add. This is a pretty color, and again, I love that muted kind of pink color. Nothing that's too bright and nothing that's too shiny. This is another button that might end up on there, or some silver buttons, some little silver charms. that might end up on there. And let's see, anything else in here good? Little mother of pearl buttons, which I think are so pretty. Here's a little flower that looks like mother of pearl. So I think for the most part, that is it. That's probably what I will be adding to my little piece. Here's a little piece from a scarf that had these unusual little circles. This was a little bit of gathered selvage, so that could possibly end up on here. A little piece of mother of pearl. Is there a hole in that one? Yes, there's a hole in that, so that might end up somewhere. So I think that's probably basically it. There's a little Peter Rabbit button, and that could end up as well on there. So my little box of treasures here, I will put them here somewhere. It's getting crowded here. And my little bag of buttons. This looks very dark, doesn't it? So we'll pop that down there. That's a chubby piece of fabric. Let's move that out. So we'll do this. Try to make it look a little more organized here. Not that it is at all. But so that is what I have chosen, and that is my plan, to use this little beautiful little piece of quilt. And I didn't square the edges. I left the scallop on the edge where she did that curved edge around the double wedding ring. So I loved that. The other side is straight where they cut the quilt, and I'm leaving it just as it is. I'm not going to do anything to it because I just want to leave it exactly in the shape that it's in. And let's see, up here, or I should say down here, if you can see, I added lace to the bottom of this little piece of quilt, and I'll be adding lace to all of the edges, so it will have lace trim on the other three edges. This edge with the little scallop that she has on there, I will definitely leave that. I love that it's all worn like that from years of love, whoever had it. So I will leave that, and I'll just put a few of these little things, since the red backing in my box doesn't look very pretty here. Let's add some of these little treasures here. So these are some of the things I'll be adding to my piece as we go on and we find out what we're working with, what prompts we have. Let me just scooch that over a little tiny bit. So thank you very much for joining me today and coming along on my journey. And whatever, I'm kind of excited to see how this turns out, what it will look like. I can imagine, but again, you know, from the imagining to the actual little piece, I don't know. You never know if it'll look as good as you're envisioning. And also with summer and all the activities, our daughter's up visiting, and I've had the grandkids here overnight. So with all that's going on in this summer, I'm hoping to be able to keep up with it all. But, oh goodness, I'm rambling. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I'm wishing you many blessings, and bye for now.